Spencer, do you have a preference about, I mean, obviously people should do whatever they want, but oh, people are putting their cameras on. I was going to say, sometimes it makes me feel like I'm alone in a Zoom if everyone's cameras are off,
Yeah.
but
Uh,
I don't know what
I obviously, if you can have your cameras on as you get in, that'd be great. We'll have some interaction here in a few minutes. But I also understand it's fine. It's midterms. People are, people could be trying to be comfortable and relax after MO. So no pressure there. Give until 5:03 and then we'll just start because we are recording. So if anybody's late, they can catch up then.
Is anyone in here not in the MBA program? I recognize most of your names. All MBAs?
Yes.
Nice.
Thanks for coming during your midterms week. I see some familiar faces. That's fun. At least get my screen share going. We'll give everybody another minute. Hopefully we get a few more attendees because this is far less than 50 people have signed up.
Did everyone in here, did you guys go to the management consulted thing? Most people? Okay, I'm seeing lots of nodding.
Okay, who's nodding? I need to make sure whoever nods is going to get cold called. Just kidding.
Little did you know I was throwing you into the flames there.
Thanks, Shayla. Good teamwork. All right, well, we'll get started. Thanks everybody for being here. I know it is midterms week. Some of the big ones, or the big one, I think for a lot of people is still coming up with econ, but appreciate you all taking some time today. We'll keep it brief to 30 minutes. I will stay on after for questions as well. So if you have questions about case prep or the case prep program, we'll get to that. But we'll dive right in. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Spencer Clayson. I am part of the Consulting Club leadership team. I'm the vice president of case preparation. So really, I am here to help facilitate the case prep program, as well as help all of you as you prepare for your case interviews and potential case interviews. Today, we're really going to focus on how to start preparing for these and what exactly is a case interview. So I know we come in with very different levels of understanding of what a case interview is or how to do it. Some of us are coming from consulting, from industry, others have no experience. That doesn't matter. Today's a great introduction no matter where you're at, and a great way to just get back into the swing of things if you have been in the case interview or a case prep program before. So today, just a brief agenda. We're going to start talking about kind of why casing, what exactly it does for consulting firms and potential other roles that may need case interviews. Some of the basics, and then Shayla and I will do a brief mock case, just the start of one because of our time constraint. And then we'll actually get into some more interactive casing with all of you, where we can start working on a framework and seeing how you all think about things and where we can grow. And then what we have coming up for the Consulting Club in terms of the case prep program itself and how that operates as well. So that's kind of the outline for today's programming. To start, really want to overview of what skills companies are looking for from MBAs. An MBA is a distinguishing characteristic, and you have expectations if you're coming into a company as a post MBA graduate or as an intern of what you bring into it. McKinsey, of the McKinsey consulting firm, stated that 4 things are really what they're looking for with MBAs and MBA grads: impact, entrepreneurial drive, problem solving skills, and leadership. Case interviews are their way of assessing how you solve problems and if your mindset around problem solving fits with what they're looking for the problems that they address as a company. But it's not just about problem solving. It's about assessing really how you think and how you approach business problems and find solutions. It's also an opportunity for you to understand the types of skills that you'll need to use in your daily life, in your job as you approach these new industries, and an opportunity to show the employer exactly how you think about what they're doing. So if you're looking into healthcare, you'll be given a healthcare case, and it will give you an opportunity to show the employer how you think about healthcare and what you understand. And if your understanding is at a point, for them to take a chance on giving you an offer to show yourself in a more in-depth in your internship or full-time role. So what is a case interview? So a case interview, really it's 4 segments. You could think about it. An interviewer will give you a prompt. This prompt could be vague, to the terms of, hi, we're a business, we're coming to you, we're bleeding cash, we're not making money, help. And it's your job as the consultant to give solutions to that. Or it can be very detailed. And that comes in terms of, having lots of details about the business, what they're working on. And the interviewer in a case interview will give you some type of prompt, and then it's your job to ask questions to get as much information out of the interviewer before you start analyzing and trying to come up with your recommendation. This is one of the key areas where we're going to focus today, is in this information gathering and the prompt stage. Your goal in these stages is to understand as much about the problem before starting to generate insights and offer solutions. So this is the time when you ask clarifying questions and try to understand in as much detail as possible what the company is asking you to do as the consultant. Then comes the analysis, where you take those and you apply some form of framework and structural thinking to the problem and the information that you've been given. Oftentimes this comes with, you'll have some key information and you'll need to kind of approach that and do some calculations, do some mental math, and then ultimately provide a solution to the client that results in an actionable advice to solve their problem. This can be very broad, but oftentimes the client actually wants a specific kind of execution and strategy beyond just increased sales, but actually how they get to that, what milestones they need to look for. And as you continue your case prep, you'll see how each of these areas, these 4 areas, gets more in depth and how you can really practice that. Today we're going to focus on what to do when you get a prompt from an interviewer and how to begin the information gathering segment. And then we'll give you an opportunity to kind of propose your framework and show us how you think about a business problem and what you may need to do to think more like a consultant and more like somebody who's working in strategy. So that's the basics of case interviews. Obviously, they're a really great way for companies to see how you think about problems. A common misconception that I had coming into the MBA was that, case interviews are only for consulting, right? So a lot of us here are obviously interested in consulting, interested in the consulting club, but case interviews are not unique to consulting anymore. Many companies are using them, and more use them each year to assess MBA and grad level talent for internal strategy positions, marketing, and other positions. I was at CVS last summer, and case interviewing was a huge part of the interview process. It was the largest part of the interview process for the company, even though it's not a consulting firm. So whether or not you're considering consulting, or if along the next few months, as you network and learn about consulting, you realize it may not be for you. Case interviewing is still very important in that your companies may ask for you to do a case interview. And also it trains you to think the way an MBA student and a grad of an MBA program should be thinking. So all of that to say, it's not just consulting. It's not just if you're looking for Big Four or MBB, but also if you're looking for investing, banking, healthcare. Case interviews are broad and important. With that, I should mention before, case interviews take many different forms. So we're going to go through kind of the most traditional form today. But it's important for you as you network and prepare for specific interviews to understand what type of interview you're going for, because oftentimes you will have a very different type of interview than what you've practiced, and that can throw people off. So as you prepare for interviews and start getting interviews from your applications, make sure you reach out to us at the Consulting Club and who you've networked with at that firm to understand what to expect in your case interview, and then we can tailor your preparation from that. So how do you prepare? And this is where a lot of people struggle, right? I will tell you from the get-go, I started my MBA program. I've been working in nonprofit work and I had no idea what a case interview was. Didn't know how to do one, right? I sat down for my first case prep session thinking like, oh, I'm smart. I think about problems well. I got to do an MBA. I'll be fine. And I bombed hard. And that's what really got me interested in the preparation and what led me to this position in the Consulting Club, because I realized how important it is to prepare and prepare well for these interviews. So first thing, it takes time. Like anything, it takes time. It takes practice. This is a skill. It is not intuitive for most people. And it's not intuitive because it differs from company to company, how you should be interviewing and what types of solutions you should be looking for. The best way to prepare is find somebody or 2 or 3 people to do some weekly preparation with. We have a spreadsheet in the Google Drive that went out this week where you can find partners and set up time with them to do preparation and to practice cases together. And those preparations should be treated like an actual interview, where one person's the interviewer and one person's the interviewee, and you give each other the prompt and you work through it as if you were in an interview. After you get the basics down and you go through some of those early struggles, it's great to find new partners and it's great to kind of expand. One of the keys for me as I was preparing was actually reaching out to alumni and people in my network and networking and asking them to give me a case. So if you're looking at Deloitte, find somebody who's an alumni at Deloitte and ask for their help and say, hey, can you spend 45 minutes with me and give me a case? Because they can give you real world experience, and that also shows them that you're interested and you're thinking about this, and they will be willing to kind of add you to their repertoire as they, recommend you for your potential interview. And lastly, challenge yourself. So build your skills. So, find really heavy math cases, find really heavy qualitative cases, and do it consistently. It is much harder to succeed in a case interview if you are not preparing consistently up to that point. So if you know when your interview is going to take place, outline a 2-month program and dedicate time every week. So we're going to start with a basic case that Shayla is going to give us kind of an overview of how to approach a case. So I will be the interviewer in this circumstance. Shayla will be the interviewee, and I'm going to give her the prompt. I'm also going to put the prompt on the screen so all of you can follow along. That's not typical, so don't expect that as you're going forward. So Shayla, you are consulting for a small regional maker of high quality premium priced frozen desserts. The business is barely making a profit and management really doesn't know that they will be able to pay their usual dividend this year. The client sells ice cream and frozen yogurt in its own standalone store. In recent years, as Americans jump on the fitness bandwagon, frozen yogurt has begun to outsell ice cream and currently represents 60% of their products sold. The selling price per pint is the same for both frozen yogurt and ice cream, but the ingredients are different. Ice cream uses locally available milk and cream and flavorings such as chocolate, pecans, vanilla, and coffee. The premium frozen yogurts use more exotic flavorings such as mangoes, kiwis, pineapples, and raspberries. All other costs are equal for the two lines. They've asked you to help them identify the problem for the low level of profit.
Excellent. All right, great. Spencer, thank you so much for this case here. What I would love to do is just sort of reiterate back to you what I've heard and make sure that we're on the same page.
Great.
Our client today is a small regional producer and seller of frozen desserts. Specifically, they produce both ice cream and frozen yogurt. And recently they're experiencing some profitability concerns. And in particular, they're concerned that they won't be able to distribute their dividends as normal this year. As we start to sort of dive into what's going on in the business, what our client has noticed is that their sales of frozen yogurt are becoming a much greater share of their business. So that's kind of a change that's happened in the business more recently. And some background information here is that the prices for pints of both ice cream and frozen yogurt are the same. However, the ingredients are different. So ice cream, the ingredients are locally sourced, and it sounds like a bit more perhaps easily and less expensively procured. And for frozen yogurt, it sounds like there is more exotic and, dare I hazard a guess, expensive ingredients. And what we're trying to do here is investigate the causes of our clients' profitability concerns. Does it sound like we're on the same page so far?
It does. You have all of the information correct to this point, Shayla.
Fantastic. Before I take a moment to dive deeply in here, I'd love to just ask a couple of clarifying questions. I do believe that you stated that our client sells their frozen treats in their own stores. Did I understand that correctly? And is it just one store or is it many stores?
So you are correct in that they sell at their own store. It is the one store, and there is no other market that they have.
Okay, perfect. That's really good to know. And that is great. And then ice cream and frozen yogurt are the only two products. Am I understanding that correctly as well?
Correct.
Perfect. Okay, great. Spencer, if I may, I would love to just take about 2 minutes to review the information here and then present you with a game plan thereafter, if that suits.
That's great. Thank you, Shayla.
Perfect.
All right. So we've gotten to this point. So this is the beginning of the case. This is when you'll be getting a prompt and then you'll be reading the prompt basically back to them. So the keys here that Shayla did a great job of showing us is, making sure that you take notes while you're listening to the prompt and getting as much information as possible. And then reiterating that back. This is a time for you to be able to show that you are capable of taking in lots of information in a short amount of time and parsing through all of this information to get to what's most important. And Shayla did a great job of doing this by not only giving me basically everything that I gave her, but getting to the core problem as she asked those clarifying questions. Before she took her long pause, she also, as I said, asked these clarifying questions where you can ask a couple of questions to kind of dig a little bit deeper into the case before you start breaking it down and trying to find the solutions and then create your recommendation. The key with that is to ask broad questions that help you get to the core issue that they're asking about, or clarify anything that wasn't 100% clear so you don't make mistakes as you get further into this. Shayla did a great job of focusing on kind of the product, right? She mentioned that, okay, I've got an inkling that this exotic flavorings and this frozen yogurt is going to be a problem. It's probably costing more and selling for the same price. So she's already thinking along those lines, which is great. And 2, she really clarified, is there anything else that could be leading to this low profitability, right? Are we selling other things? Do we have lots of real estate? And the answer was no, right? Sometimes the answer will be yes, sometimes they'll give you more information, but interviewers actually expect you to ask some clarifying questions and have information that they're ready to give you in the beginning of a case if you ask those questions, and you won't get, and it will make the case harder on you if you don't ask clarifying questions. So as you start a case, make sure, you start, listen, take some keynotes, find your shorthand and find a way to really get as much information written down and as little space as possible, and then reiterate that back to the interviewer. And then ask basic clarifying questions before taking some time to start your framework and build out how you're going to approach this case and what areas you're going to investigate further. So we've highlighted here kind of the basics. If you were not reading this, if you were listening to it, here's the areas that you want to focus on, right? Don't really care. Management is unsure if they'll be able to pay their dividend. That doesn't make it, that's not the issue, right? We identify at the end, the issue is profit. So there's a lot of ways that they've said that, but really it's profit. They want to make money. And then, as Shayla mentioned, standalone store. That's a key point. Frozen yogurt, selling more of their product, key point right there. And then the selling price, that's going to be an important data point. Obviously, you want to know your costs, your revenue, that's going to give you your profit. And then, what are the differentiating factors, and then cost there. So there's a lot of information here, but it's really easy to break it down and then just kind of write that down and start your case from there. Shayla did a great job of asking some clarifying questions. Again, there's not necessarily a perfect way to case because everybody thinks a little bit differently, but she did a great job of asking this one, right, of do you sell other products besides ice cream? Really important to understand that this is a case about profitability. We want to know all the products, all of the things that are going to generate money and create costs. So if there's other things, you need to know that upfront. And then second, she asked about real estate. That gives us a little bit more insight into cost. That's a great question. Just because it's not listed here doesn't mean it's a bad question. Shayla knows that. She's very smart. And then another question that you can ask is, is there a certain target for profitability, or is there a certain point that they're trying to reach? And you can dive into a little bit more of the numbers, but oftentimes it's okay to ask a couple of clarifying questions and move on because you don't want to get stuck at the clarifying questions phase. These are the answers that we could have given her. 50% profit margin is something that the interviewer would be willing to give, but will come up at some point in the interview if you don't ask it in a clarifying question. And then we get to the actual breakdown of the case itself. So in this long pause that Shayla's taken, she is now trying to find out, what do I need to do to break this down into smaller pieces so I can start identifying the core issues here, right? We know from her questions that, profit, that's the main thing. The profitability framework is very simple. It's the most simple one that you're going to use, and it's costs and revenues. Revenues minus cost gives you profit. That is the core of casing, and a large portion of the cases you do will focus on this. And then you want to break those down into further issues, right? So we can start identifying, is it because we have not enough revenue or too high of costs that is leading to our low profit? And then you break it down into price, quantity, variable costs, fixed costs. And this is pretty standard, but again, this will differ based on each case if you get more or less information. And then from here, as you go through the case, you'll actually present this to the interviewer. You'll say, okay, I know this is a profitability case. Knowing that we're trying to identify where the profit is, we want to focus on two areas, right? Revenues and costs, and identify which of those is the problem. Are our costs too high? Is our revenue too low? And what can we do to change that? And then you need to dig in and offer these specific kind of recommendations that reach into the revenue or the cost equation. So that's where you start identifying the data points that you're looking for. And this is where the interviewer is going to start giving you some more information. So as you look at price, you don't want to just say, hi, I'm thinking price could be an issue, but you actually want to ask and offer, say, I think the price of an ice cream or yogurt may be part of the problem. What is the ice, right? And as you list all of those parts of the framework, the interviewer will key on, here's where we're seeing issues, or here's where I have more information. So again, the framework is a way for you to parse out more information from the interviewer and allow you to dive into finding the solution and recommendations to give back to the company. So for our frozen desserts case, we look at, the price of yogurt, what are the costs for all the ingredients, has anything changed? We know the quantity, we know the cost per unit may be a problem. And then Shayla did a great job of getting to this question even before her framework and her structure. And that is, is there equipment or real estate that may have eaten into these profits? So this is kind of the next step. As you get past your pause and you get into it, you want to start thinking about, what is the framework that I'm going to be using? What are the breakdowns of that framework? And what are the specific data points that I'm looking for that may offer more information on those breakdowns? Okay, I know we're short on time, but I'd like to do a little breakdown right here and give you all an opportunity to kind of propose your first structure. So our client is a fast food chain in the US with a revenue of 1.5 billion per year. They want to grow their revenue. What advice can you give them? And then we'll give you the additional information up front so that you can actually get through this a little bit quicker. But if you all want to take some time and kind of create your initial structure, like the previous slide that we saw, and how you would start thinking about this case and how you would present it to an interviewer. We'll give you a minute. Normally you'll have a little bit more than that. Okay, and because we're short on time, is there anybody who is feeling especially brave and wants to give the start of their structure or their framework that they're using to approach this problem? Right, if not, I will ask Chris because he's at the top of my screen. Sorry, Chris.
All right.
How did you approach this? What was your initial structure, or what does your structure look like at this point?
So basically, since the goal is to grow their revenue, I started thinking revenue is equal to profit minus cost. But then looking into this rest of this data here that they have, they're more focused on how can they attract more people to come into the store and visit, but which is hard to do because 300 million people visit fast food chains at least once a week. So it's more, the way I see it now, the problem is shifted to how do we pull these customers from other fast food chains, especially from our two competitors, into our market or into our stores. So I think the first thing I would want to know is just basically what kind of strategies have they, well, I guess not that, but like to understand. Well, also the other thing too I see is that customers spend about the same per visit. So it's kind of seems like they're, it's just more of a numbers game. How do you attract more customers to your store versus the other stores?
Yeah, that's great. So I should have clarified, this customer segmentation is for the entire industry. But you nailed it. So we could break down and if we had the time, we would go into the actual math of how much is spent per customer segment. But we get to, okay, we see the problem that you identified very early on is that we don't have enough customers compared to the market. And then that gets us to kind of our framework. So again, we're looking at profit here, right? Revenue is the goal. We want to increase revenue, which, in long term really means we want to increase profit, right? Nobody wants to increase revenue without increasing profit. So profit's the number one here. And then what do we need to do? We need to attract more customers, right? Because we're not looking to decrease costs. So we need to increase kind of the number of units sold or the price per unit. Chris, you identified that really well early on of, what is their marketing strategy? So you kind of keyed in on, okay, we need to understand what they're doing, and then offering solutions to that. So really, first off, really great job, Chris, of kind of getting through all of the information that was given to you and getting to this. I know we're over time, but I want to finish up because this is really the key. If you can get to a point where you have some form of structure, you can get to an answer. As long as you have the right structure. So today we talked about the profitability structure, and we saw two different ways that profitability structure can play out in a case, right? The first case was very clear. We're going to look at revenue. We're going to look at costs. We want to see what the differences are. Are we high in costs or low in revenue? And then obviously, what can we change from that? The second case, this most recent one that Chris did a great job of showing us, was really, it asked us about revenue. So we ultimately wanted to figure about profit, but the case is asking about revenue. And so we really want to dive in onto this segment, the revenue, numbers of units sold and price per unit part of the structure. So as you think about these cases, as you're practicing them, recognize that these structures are not one size fits all, right? You're going to be given some form of information, and you need to find the structure that you're familiar with and alter it and evolve it to work with the case and the information that you've been given, and ask for the information that you may not have. So in the Yumico case, we had no information on costs, and I wouldn't be able to give you any information on costs. So that's a clear indication that we're not looking at the costs. So your time would be spent asking questions and deriving solutions based on the revenue. I understand this is very high level, and it's a very kind of brusque approach to case prepping. There's lots of opportunities as you go forward to prepare for cases. And I am an example of how case preparation and the case prep program can help you get to a point where you can succeed in your cases and ultimately land a great job. BU has paid for us to use Management Consulted. They have a library that gives you walkthroughs, that gives you basic structures to use, and helps you build those early skills before you get to the case interview and practice stage. Additionally, as a lot of you know, we have lots of case competitions. Battle of the Boutiques is a great way to kind of show your thinking in a very non-competitive circumstance. And the Consulting Club has other opportunities in terms of our newsletter. And lastly, we have, or not lastly, because there's other points, but we have a case matching program. So starting next week after midterms are done for all the first years, we will be sending out a sign up with appointments for second years who went through the case prep program and landed jobs that required them to succeed in case interviews. If you're signed up for the Consulting Club newsletter, you'll be on that distribution list. And again, I want to reiterate that reach out to your network, reach out to alumni, find people in the industry you're targeting for. If you're looking for Deloitte, find people at Deloitte that you may know or maybe alumni, and ask them to prepare with you. It's a great resource, and I found that to be incredibly helpful. I will be sending out the rest of this. This is the basic outline that you'll see as you click on the link in the email. Make sure you only sign up for one slot per week. We have a lot of interest in the program right now, and our second years are great, but we're all very busy. So if you're looking for more preparation, find a partner or reach out to me, and we can try and set up, additional time or other resources. But to be cognizant of everybody, make sure you're only signing up for one slot. And this will go live on this Sunday. So be prepared for that. lastly, I'll open it up for questions. I am good to stay on, so I'm happy to answer more questions. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for being patient as we went a little bit over on time. And I want you to know that it's completely doable to come from no experience with case interviews, no experience with structures or the profitability model or any of this, and through practice, through your own hard work, be able to succeed and get to a great position, a great job that is worth, your time and worth the time and money that you're spending to be here at BU. So with that, I'm going to stop the recording and the screen share. And